Tom Brady is a household name for as long as I can remember, and that talent doesn't come cheap. You said GOAT, greatest of all time, really, that has to come with a pretty heavy price tag. How much has he earned on and off the field?
So you are right. It is quite the price tag. We estimate in total it's about 525 million. That comes out to about 333 million on the field, and then a little over 200 million off the field. So those are pretty astronomical numbers. Tom Brady is one of the most marketable faces in the league. Obviously, he's proven that he can earn both on and off the field, and being at the top tier of your position, especially the quarterback position, which is highly valued in the league, is always going to translate into high earnings. What's really interesting is that Brady, though, was not maximizing his marketing dollars throughout most of his career. And, he's someone who had success very early on. So, it's questionable were the opportunities there and why wasn't he doing this? But ultimately, around 2019, there was really a shift where he was just kind of over the 8-figure number in endorsement money, and then he kind of just ticked it up a notch. And now, when we published our list of the NFL's highest paid players in late 2022, or I guess mid 2022, since it was August, we had him earning 45 million in expected endorsement money for the coming season. So that's really interesting that he's decided to be, more marketing, more endorsement focused, but also he's kind of become more entrepreneurially focused. He's got a number of companies that he's behind, whether it's the TB12 nutrition brand, Autograph, which is an NFT company, the Brady brand clothing line. He also has a production company. And recently he invested in a Major League Pickleball team as well. So he's doing a lot of different things in a lot of different ways and kind of branching out his business. Maybe that's, kind of the evolution of Tom Brady himself. But ultimately, you're right. A star of that caliber is going to earn the big bucks.
I do want to talk about his foray into entrepreneurial endeavors, but before we get there, you mentioned that Forbes list of 2022. He was the highest paid NFL player, but what really stuck out to me was that he made 30 million on the field, 45 million off the field. So way more money off the field. Is this normal?
I think it's normal for the Tom Brady's of the world. I don't think, the average player is earning more, marketing money than their playing salary. In a lot of cases, players tend to earn, relative to the average person, crazy amounts of money on the field, but they're not necessarily popular enough, or they don't stand out in the crowd. But when I say the Tom Brady's of the world, I'm talking about the biggest faces in their respective sports: LeBron James, Steph Curry, Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi. All these people, all these players you will see have, whether maybe in some cases it's not exactly, the off-field money is greater than the on-field money. Maybe it's close, but in all these cases, you're going to see them earning astronomical endorsement dollars because these are the biggest faces in the world. These are the most marketable athletes in the world. And these are also athletes that know how to capitalize on that. So yeah, is it normal? No. But, in the case of Tom Brady, I wouldn't expect anything else.
Yeah, once you get to the superstar level, I could see that shift. And I can imagine brands were really chomping at the bit to work with him in terms of endorsements.
Absolutely. And I think you can see that by the portfolio he's collected over the last few years. I mean, he's all over Hertz, national commercial campaigns. He's got one of the best-selling jerseys on Fanatics, so that always chips in some money to him that way. But he's collected this group of brand partners now that ultimately, really contribute to pulling in these earnings. I mean, he's been in Subway commercials before. It's something, we didn't really see, a few years back, but now, Tom Brady, like we just said, one of the most marketable faces in the sport, one of the biggest athletes on the planet. Brands want him, what he represents, how recognizable he is, what kind of reach he has. So yeah, I mean, chomping at the bit probably is an understatement.
Now let's get into his final season. How would you describe his 2022?
So I think from a performance level, if you look at the raw stats, he was as good as he ever was. He's posting, top of the league numbers and passing yards, touchdowns. Ultimately, like if you watched him, maybe you kind of felt like he took a step back just in that it seemed like in the past, even though, the quarterback can only do so much, it felt like Tom Brady was unbeatable. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this year did not perform as well as I'm assuming they would have liked to. They went 8-9 and made the playoffs and won their division, but they took a first-round exit to the Dallas Cowboys right away. So I don't think it was really considered a success on the field as much as they would have wanted. I don't think Brady rode off into the sunset the way he would have wanted. But ultimately, I mean, Tom Brady proved he could still play if he wants, but ultimately, it's hard to get inside his mind and understand what he wants at this point in time and where he wants to be. And maybe this is just a signal that he wants to focus more on his business stuff. Maybe that's why he's hanging up the shoulder pads at this point. I think we don't know. It's only inside his head, but we can kind of take a guess.
And Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won the Super Bowl back in 2021. Do you think retiring perhaps at that time when he was on top instead of after his team's what you described as an almost mediocre season would have been better for his brand, or does it matter because he's just past that, he is the superstar, potentially the greatest football player to ever live?
I think you captured it in that he's well past that. Tom Brady accomplished, what he needed to accomplish when he was in New England. When he won his first 3 Super Bowls, that was incredible as it was. And then he went out, won another 3 in New England. Then he goes to Tampa Bay and does it again. Is it nice to have that storybook ending? Yeah, that was something John Elway did when he retired. He won 2 Super Bowls and then retired. But ultimately, I think you got to remember that when Brady came back for 22, he was still great and his team was still very good. I mean, obviously the Rams ended up winning the Super Bowl, but they beat Tampa Bay on a last second play. And, if a few bounces go another way, maybe Tom Brady is playing for another Super Bowl last year. Maybe that changes the calculus or the equation here. Ultimately, though, Tom Brady is Tom Brady. With the reach of social media today and athletes kind of owning their own audiences, he's already established his credentials and has this brand power. He's always going to be who he is. So I don't think it mattered. I think maybe, not accomplishing that final goal, maybe doesn't have the best kind of ending. But ultimately, I don't think it changes anything about Brady's legacy or the way we saw him.
Yeah, it wasn't the movie ending that we wanted, I guess, but now that, as you said, he's officially hung up the shoulder pads twice, what's next for Tom Brady?
So in the immediate future, he reportedly has this deal with Fox where he's going to come in and be an analyst for them, broadcast analyst. The numbers we saw in the press were 10 years, $375 million, which is an astronomical amount of money. That's kind of equated to the money he was earning when he was a player. So it's crazy to consider that, but there's been a rise in demand for broadcast talent. I think what's really interesting that we didn't get to is that Tom Brady was involved in all this FTX stuff. Him and his ex-wife Giselle were ambassadors for the brand, and he had equity in the brand, and that was a very lucrative deal for him, and that's kind of now off the table. And he has now a rather infamous commercial from that. But I think obviously as that plays out, that'll more fade away, and Tom Brady coming back in a broadcast sense will kind of be more present on our mind. He's an entrepreneur now. He's got these businesses. He's got TB12, which has always instilled a lot of confidence just because, he's been able to play professional football at a high level until he's 45. And he's got his production company, which, co-produced the 80 for Brady movie, which will be in theaters this week. So I think there's a lot of interesting stuff. I'm sure brands will still want to work with him. It seems like he does have that staying power, especially since he is who he is, and he's going to be staying in the minds of consumers by being, on Fox. But ultimately, I guess playing football is not going to be a part of that.